A millionaire hid inside his own house to discover how his fiancée treated his sick mother, and what he saw was so cruel that only the maid had the courage to stop it. The Brooks mansion, surrounded by immaculate gardens and white marble columns, breathed luxury and silence. Inside, however, the atmosphere was different. Staff moved discreetly, carrying trays and fine fabrics. A decorator spoke on the phone, confirming suppliers. And at the center of it all stood Thomas, sharply dressed, clean-shaven, eyes filled with determination, smiling like a man who had everything under control. "Catering is confirmed, Olivia. Now all that's left is the rehearsal," he said, holding a tablet full of notes. Olivia smiled. The kind of smile that lights up the face but never reaches the eyes. "Perfect, love. The wedding of our dreams is almost ready." Tall, sophisticated, and elegant in posture, Olivia looked as if she had stepped straight out of a bridal magazine. And to almost everyone around her, she was exactly that, the ideal woman. Everyone, except for one person in that house. Margaret Brooks watched the scene from the veranda, silent. Seated in her blue linen armchair, a closed book resting on her lap, the family matriarch kept her eyes sharp and steady, like a sentinel. "She's beautiful," said Martha, the housekeeper, approaching with a tray of tea. Margaret didn't look away. "Beautiful, too beautiful, and she knows it." Martha nodded, setting the teacup on the small side table. "There's something about her that bothers me. Since the first day, the way she looks at people, the way she talks to the staff when Thomas isn't around." Margaret drew in a deep breath, her fingers closing tightly over the book. "Thomas doesn't see it. He's enchanted." "I don't blame him. He's a man. But if there's one thing I've learned in this life, it's how to recognize falsehood when it walks through the door." "Will you talk to him?" Martha asked. "I already have, and he brushed me off politely. Thinks it's just a mother's jealousy." Margaret gave a humorless smile. "I've seen women like her before, Martha. She wants something, and it's not love." Later that afternoon, Thomas was heading up to his office when he met his mother on the stairs. She was descending slowly, hand on the railing. "Can we talk?" she asked. Thomas stopped. "Of course, Mom. But if this is about Olivia again—" "It is," she cut him off. "And you're going to listen to me, if only out of respect for the woman who raised you." He sighed. He knew that tone. Margaret wasn't prone to hysteria or gossip. If she was insisting, it meant something deeper was bothering her. They sat in the library, where the dark wooden shelves held memories and the family's first business contracts. Margaret didn't beat around the bush. "I know you're in love, but love can't be a blindfold. I've seen Olivia mistreat employees. I've seen her lie to you about small things." She paused. "And today, I overheard her referring to me as an obstacle while talking on the phone in the garden. She didn't realize I was there." Thomas's eyes widened. "That doesn't make sense, Mom. Olivia's always been respectful to you. I've never heard—" "Because she makes sure of it when you're around." "Maybe it was a misunderstanding." Margaret rose, exasperated. "You think I'm crazy, making this up?" "No, but I think you're overreacting." She looked at him steadily. "I'm only asking one thing, Thomas. Open your eyes. Don't be blinded by a pretty face." He didn't respond. He just stood there as she left the room. That night, Thomas was upstairs when he heard a faint sound coming from the hallway. Footsteps, then a low voice, whispering. He moved quietly toward the staircase and saw Olivia downstairs, on the phone. "Of course it's going to work," she said impatiently. "He's completely blind. The plan is working perfectly." Silence. Yes, the old lady's still a problem, but not for much longer. Thomas froze. The conversation was cut short by a noise in the kitchen, and Olivia quickly hung up and pretended to be getting a glass of water. Thomas quietly returned to the bedroom. Lying in bed, He stared at the ceiling, his mind racing. It could have been about anything, in any context. It might not mean what it seemed, but her voice, that tone, there was something there, something cold. The next morning, the house returned to its frantic rhythm of preparations. Olivia gave orders like a born hostess, but Thomas no longer smiled the way he used to. From the top of the stairs, Margaret noticed. He was distant, troubled, like someone who had heard a melody he couldn't get out of his head. As he went up to the bedroom, Thomas paused in front of the closet mirror, adjusted his tie, ran a hand through his hair, but his reflection no longer showed a man in love. It was the look of someone beginning to question everything. "What if my mother's right?" he murmured to himself. Silence answered. And for the first time since the engagement, Thomas felt fear. On Wednesday morning, the house seemed to live one of those days when everything worked in silence. Breakfast served right on time, freshly watered garden, even the weather felt cooperative. Thomas came down for breakfast with his suitcase ready and an air of calculated urgency. "I have to travel, love. Important meeting with investors in Los Angeles," he said while Olivia finished her orange juice. She raised her eyebrows, slightly displeased. "Now? I thought this week was supposed to be all about the wedding." "Exactly. I'm finalizing the investment deal for the resort. I'll be back in 7 days. Olivia hesitated, then smiled. "All right, I'll take care of things here." Thomas leaned in, kissed her lightly on the forehead, and said goodbye to his mother, who simply watched in silence. But Margaret knew. That look between her and her son carried more than a farewell. It was a pact. The car drove off. Olivia watched from the veranda until it disappeared past the main gate. Then she turned on her heels and went back inside, relieved. However, Thomas never left the city. He didn't even leave the property. The old wing of the mansion, long abandoned and recently renovated in secret, now hid an isolated, soundproof room filled with monitors, cables, and top-of-the-line security technology. Everything had been installed quietly over the past few months. That was where he hid himself away, alone, with only Martha aware of his presence. "Are you sure about this, Mr. Thomas?" Martha asked, eyes still wide. "Martha, if my mother's right, I need to know, but I can't accuse Olivia without proof." Martha nodded, though her expression said it all. She was already convinced. The first few hours crawled by. On the screen, Olivia moved through the house as usual, strolling through the garden, flipping through magazines, answering messages on her main phone, smiling at the staff. A picture of normalcy. But Thomas watched closely. Not what she did, but how she did it. Olivia wasn't sad, nor did she seem to miss him. She looked relieved, like someone finally taking off their shoes after a long day. That night, she had dinner alone with Margaret, and there came the first crack. "The food's cold," she said, pushing her plate away. "Are people here always this careless?" Margaret lifted her eyes slowly, saying nothing. Olivia forced a smile. "Sorry, it's the stress. Planning a wedding is exhausting." Thomas paused the recording, rewound it, watched again. The tone was mocking. There was no real attempt at kindness. That wasn't exhaustion. It was disguised contempt. Over the next few days, the pattern became clearer. Olivia avoided Margaret most of the time. When they were together, she made comments that were too subtle to sound openly offensive, yet sharp enough to make her dislike clear. "This decor needs a serious update. It looks like a grandma's house." "Wow, you still take the stairs?" "Impressive. I'd never let my mother tire herself like that." "I don't know how Thomas managed to live here for so long." The cameras caught every sideways glance, every flicker of impatience. And even when she was alone, Olivia seemed to perform, as if she expected to be watched, though she didn't know from where. Thomas watched in silence. With every word, his chest tightened. It was like watching a window crack little by little until you realized it was already falling apart. Martha, loyal and observant, began helping him gather clues. "She's changed her routine, Mr. Thomas. Doesn't come down for breakfast with Mrs. Margaret anymore. Leaves the house without saying where. Gets deliveries that don't go through the front gate. And yesterday," she lowered her voice, "I saw her hiding something in her purse." Thomas frowned. "Can you describe it?" "A small object. Black. I thought it was another phone." The confirmation came that night. It was close to midnight. Thomas was re-watching footage from the guest room where Olivia now slept alone. The lights were off, but a faint glow from the vanity lamp was enough to see. She entered the room with quick steps, locked the door, and went straight to her purse. From it, she pulled out a small device, slim, dark, metallic. A phone. Definitely another phone, one she'd never used in public. She sat on the bed and dialed a number. Her voice, clear and focused, filled the speakers. "The house is clear. He's gone. We can move forward with the plan." Silence. She listened, then replied, "No, the old lady's still here, but it's just a matter of time. I just need you to do your part. I'll handle the rest." She hung up, hid the phone again, and went to sleep as if nothing had happened. Thomas stayed frozen, staring at the screen. His palms were sweaty, his heart pounding. The plan was real, and now he was part of it, as the target. Olivia was hiding something big, and that phone call was only the beginning. Thomas didn't sleep that night. The hidden phone, the call, Olivia's cold voice. All of it circled through his mind like poison. But he knew. Hearing a single line wasn't enough. He needed solid, irrefutable proof. That's when he thought of Ryan, an old college friend, an ethical hacker, a specialist in digital security, with a record that dangerously flirted with the illegal and who owed Thomas a favor. The next morning, Thomas called from his hideout. "I need to mirror a phone. Urgent. I've got the model, the number, everything. Can you do it?" Ryan didn't hesitate. "I'll get you access in under 24 hours. The following afternoon, Thomas sat in front of the laptop, his hands trembling over the keyboard, when the first notification popped up. "Olivia, device paired successfully." From that moment on, every message, call, and file exchanged on that device would appear in real time. It didn't take long. Jason. That was the name that showed up most often. At first, Thomas thought he was merely an accomplice, but as soon as he opened the first string of messages, he realized Jason was much more. "I miss your skin. When this wedding charade is over, I want you all to myself. Last night I dreamed of us on a boat, far from this disgusting house." Thomas squeezed his eyes shut. Heat rose in his blood. It felt like slow punches, one after another, to the stomach. Olivia wasn't just lying. She was with another man, and it wasn't an ex or a stranger. In older messages, she called him "my dear brother" to throw anyone off. A fake inside a fake. In the following days, the conversations escalated, from forbidden passion to outright conspiracy. Olivia, "He's going to sign everything, he's blind." Jason, "The prenuptial agreement is still a problem." Olivia, "I saw where he keeps it. I'll accidentally drop the safe key and you get in when you come." Jason, "And the old woman?" Olivia, "She still insists on living, but we'll handle that with elegance." Thomas pushed his chair back and put his hands to his face. This was no longer just emotional betrayal. It was a setup, a planned hit. In one of the videos recorded by the cameras, Margaret sat in the garden, alone, a book on her lap, but not reading. Her face thoughtful, distant. Thomas watched that frozen moment. "She always knew," he thought. "And I wouldn't listen." On Friday night, a new notification arrived. Video call started. Olivia, Hawk, or Jason? Thomas turned the audio on. All set with the paperwork? Jason asked, his face dimly lit. Olivia smiled. Still need a few copies, but tomorrow I'll take pictures of the contract. He won't notice. He thinks I'm just missing him. Is the old woman still an issue? She's more stubborn than I thought, but we can speed things up. She stood, walked to the vanity, and opened a drawer. She took out a small amber vial with a discreet label and held it up to the camera. Look at this. Jason laughed. That's mild, right? Mild enough to make it seem like she's just tired. But if you increase the dose gradually... Thomas paused the video. He zoomed in on the label and read the compound's name. Lorazepam, a powerful sedative, typically used for severe anxiety or insomnia. In high doses, it causes mental confusion, slowed thinking, and deep drowsiness. That was it. The plan wasn't merely to remove Margaret from the path. It was to drug her, to incapacitate her, to make her seem senile, unsteady, to make it easier to have her institutionalized, legally. Later, in another message, Olivia wrote, "If we can make him think his mother is losing her mind, we can check her into one of those fancy nursing homes. The clinic doctor is friends with my cousin. She'll sign any report." Jason replied, "And with the old woman out of the way, the contract altered, and him emotionally broken, everything's under our control." Olivia, "Exactly. Just one more push." Thomas closed the laptop. It was all there. The lies, the manipulation, the daily theater. Every word carefully placed to destroy his family from the inside, while he smiled, in love, with the woman who was already planning his ruin. But what hurt most wasn't the scheme, not even the betrayal. It was remembering his mother's voice days earlier. "I'm only asking you one thing, Thomas. Open your eyes." And he hadn't. Not until now. Now it was too late for illusions, but it wasn't too late to act. In the days that followed, Olivia took over the house like a born hostess. She met with florists, reviewed menus, and treated the staff with a practiced enthusiasm. She smiled too much. She made a point of praising Margaret in front of others, and of putting subtle jabs in when they were alone. "I made you some chamomile tea. It'll do you good," she said one afternoon, entering Margaret's room with a steaming cup. The matriarch raised her eyes from the book slowly. "I don't usually have tea in the afternoon." "But you should. Stress is terrible for your skin, you know." Olivia smiled, the same soulless smile as always. Martha, positioned discreetly in the corner of the room, watched everything. Silently, she exchanged a quick, almost imperceptible look with Margaret. "Thank you," Margaret said, taking the cup with steady hands. "I'll let it cool a bit first." Olivia nodded and left. Martha moved in immediately. She took the cup from her employer's hands and flushed the liquid down the toilet. "I saw her drop something in before she came in," she whispered. "You are not drinking that." Margaret rose from the armchair, her eyes sharper than ever. "Don't worry. Now that I know Thomas is watching, we'll play his game." In the secret room, Thomas nearly lost his breath. The scene was clear, no margin for doubt. Olivia, alone in the kitchen, had taken a vial from her bag. She counted the drops, exact, precise, and let them fall into the tea. She stirred it lightly, then took the tray and went up to her mother-in-law's room with the look of someone doing a favor. The camera tucked in the corner of the ceiling captured the crucial moment. Olivia extended the cup. Margaret took it, and for 1 second, just 1 second, before saying anything, she looked straight at the spot where she knew a hidden camera sat. It was quick, but Thomas understood. She knew she was with him. Olivia smiled and said casually, "It's about time you rested, don't you think?" The line sounded soft, but it was poisonous. Thomas clenched his fists. Over the week, the ritual repeated. Olivia brought different teas, insisted, pressed. Margaret pretended to be tired, began to show a slowness in her steps, hesitated over simple names. Martha made a point of reinforcing it. She's not well these days. She's been forgetful. All part of the plan. Olivia brightened at every new symptom. She texted Thomas, as if he were far away, speaking of her worry over her mother-in-law's health. She's acting weird. Maybe we should think about getting her checked, just to be safe. Today she mixed me up with Martha's name, and she fell in the garden. Thomas read everything in silence, his stomach churning. The fall in the garden had been staged by Margaret with the mastery of a stage actress. Everything recorded. One afternoon, Olivia slipped into Thomas's office unnoticed. She pulled a copy of the safe key from her pocket. Martha had seen her months earlier, fiddling with the lock while cleaning, but now she had free access. Inside the safe, company documents, bank statements, property papers, and the prenuptial agreement still unsigned. Olivia photographed the contract page by page. Then she sent the images to Jason. Olivia checked it. The asset protection clause is still there. We need to erase that. Jason, I've already got the right guy to edit and reprint. You just swap it later. Olivia, okay, and the clinic doctor, you talked to her? Jason, yes, report's ready. Diagnosed with early progressive dementia, very professional. Olivia typed quickly, perfect. We get the old woman admitted, Thomas signs the new contract, and that's it. That night, Thomas watched a video of Olivia locking herself in the bedroom, flopping onto the bed, and laughing to herself. Loose, celebratory laughter, like someone cheering in advance. She picked up the phone and called Jason again. The old woman is starting to show signs. Today she mixed up her own son's name. She lied, without blinking. You're a genius, Jason answered. Olivia picked up the sedative bottle and raised it like a trophy. This little thing here is working miracles. Thomas turned off the video. His heart raced. The mask had come off. Now he had no more doubts. Olivia wasn't just capable of drugging a defenseless elderly woman. She was savoring every moment. But what she didn't know was that Thomas was about to turn the game around. It was night. In the Brooks mansion, the silence seemed to foreshadow a storm. Thomas walked the hallways with steady steps, the camera images spinning in his head. Olivia drugging his mother, laughing with Jason, conspiring with pleasure. His patience had run out. He wore a dark shirt, no tie. His face was tight. In his pocket, his phone held the videos, audio clips, and screenshots, each piece of the sham stitched together with irrefutable proof. Before he acted, he went to Martha. Call Dr. Robert. Now. Say it's urgent. She nodded firmly. She didn't ask questions. She knew the moment had come. Olivia was in the guest room, sitting in front of the mirror, trying on earrings. Her face was serene, almost happy. When she heard footsteps at the door, she turned, casual. Love, what a surprise. I thought you wouldn't be back till tomorrow. Thomas entered without smiling. He locked the door behind him, his eyes fixed on her. Sit down. Olivia blinked. What? Sit down, Olivia. There was no room for games in his tone. She sat. What's this about? Thomas set the phone on the table and hit play. The first recording began to play. Her conversation with Jason, laughing about the old lady and the sedative. Her expression changed instantly. What is this bullshit? She spat. He switched to another clip. Her dropping the drops into the tea. Then the screenshots of messages, promises to tamper with contracts, the plan to have Margaret institutionalized, the chat with the complicit doctor. Olivia kept silent, but her eyes had changed. No sweetness, no trace of guilt, only calculation. You know what I think? She said, crossing her legs slowly. You should thank me. I pulled you out of monotony. I gave you excitement. Thomas ground his teeth. You tried to destroy my mother, manipulate me, steal my entire life." She rose and stepped closer, as if she could still turn the situation around. "And you fell for it perfectly, Thomas. Because deep down you wanted someone like me. Pretty, willing, cold." He backed away. "Game over, Olivia." At that moment, the silent alarm went off in the security room. Thomas saw the alert on his smartwatch. Motion sensor triggered in the back of the property. Outdoor area. He sprinted to the monitor tucked in the hallway. Camera 4. A hooded man vaulting the side wall, gun in hand, heading toward the service entrance. Jason. "Martha, take my mother to the bedroom. Lock the door," Thomas ordered over the comms. "He's here." "I'm on it," she replied, voice low. Seeing the sudden movement, Olivia knew. Her eyes widened. "You called the police?" she demanded. "They're on the way." She ran for the door, but Thomas intercepted her. "You're not going anywhere." A crash echoed from the kitchen. Jason burst in, shattering the glass of the back door. He was sweaty, out of breath, gun in hand. "Where is she?" he shouted. Olivia ran to him. "We have to get out of here," she cried. "There are cameras all over this house," he said, frantic. "It's a trap, you idiot." Thomas approached cautiously. "Drop the gun, Jason. There's nowhere to run." "Shut up." Jason trained the gun on him. Behind him, Olivia grabbed a vase and tried to throw it, but missed. Thomas dove behind the couch. A shot rang out, hitting a light fixture. Shards flew. Upstairs, Martha locked the bedroom door with Margaret inside. Despite her weakness, Margaret's expression remained resolute. "Don't worry, Mama. The police are coming," Martha said at her side. Down below, seizing a distracted moment, Thomas swung a weight from the home gym into Jason's arm. The gun skidded free. The two men went to the floor in a violent scuffle. Olivia tried to grab the weapon, but Thomas was quicker and kicked it away. Sirens, shouts, police forced the gate and rushed in with weapons drawn. Jason fled along the side of the house, leapt out a window, and vanished into the dense woods behind the property. Olivia ran the other way but was taken down by 2 officers. "Drop them! I did nothing!" she screamed, unhinged. "This is a setup!" Thomas stepped closer and looked at her one last time. "You had every chance, Olivia." She glared at him with hatred. "You'll regret this. It's not over. I know you're dirt. I know where to hurt you." Later, with the situation under control, Margaret's private doctor arrived. He ran quick tests, took blood samples, and gave supportive medication. The results were clear. Sedatives administered in steady doses but below a toxic threshold. "A few more days and the damage could have been permanent," the doctor said gravely. "But she will recover." Thomas sat beside his mother and held her hand. "Forgive me for not listening to you earlier." With her eyes closed, Margaret murmured, "You listened at the right time." Olivia was taken away in cuffs, but she walked out with her head held high. Before climbing into the squad car, she turned one last time. "I'll be back, Thomas. And when I am, you'll wish you'd buried me." The car drove off. Thomas stood at the mansion's entrance and drew a deep breath. The nightmare had burst. But the war was not over. The days following the confrontation were filled with silence and healing. The Brooks mansion, once wrapped in the artificial sparkle of wedding preparations, now seemed to breathe at a slower rhythm. The shine was replaced by sobriety, and the wounds, once invisible, had finally begun to be treated. Margaret was recovering well, though the effects of the sedative still required care. By the doctor's recommendation, she would need constant supervision for an indefinite time. Thomas, after rejecting several clinic and nurse options suggested by agencies, made a personal decision. He would interview himself, whoever was to care for the most important woman in his life. It was on a cloudy morning that Karen appeared. She wore simple clothes, nothing flashy. Hair tied back, posture firm, voice low. Her resume was spotless. Years in private hospitals, experience with the elderly, no complaints. But what struck Thomas most was the way she treated Margaret from the very first moment. No forced friendliness, no condescension. "Mrs. Margaret, would you prefer that I read to you or stay quiet for now?" she asked gently after a simple, "Good morning." Margaret smiled faintly, a rare thing in those recent times. "Stay quiet, and maybe later, read." Thomas watched from the doorway. For the first time in weeks, he saw his mother lower her shoulders, as if truly resting. Karen was different. She didn't ask more than she needed to, didn't make small talk at the wrong time. She was efficient, but never mechanical. There was a calm about her that didn't come from training. It came from within. She made the tea, but always let Margaret watch each step. She managed the medications with handwritten notes, changed the sheets, cleaned, observed every small sign. When she wasn't with Margaret, she read, wrote in a notebook, walked through the garden as if respecting the house's silence. Thomas, long used to controlling everything and everyone, took time to lower his guard. At first, he barely spoke to her, but as the days passed, Karen's presence began to change the rhythm of the house. One cold night, Thomas went upstairs carrying 2 cups of coffee, one for Martha. Passing the hallway by his mother's room, he heard Karen's soft voice reading, "And hope, though wounded, still walked." Slowly, stumbling at times, but it walked. He stopped. He stood there, motionless, listening. It was a passage from Clarice. Margaret's eyes were closed. She wasn't asleep. She was simply listening. In that scene, there was no protocol, no obligation. Karen wasn't reading out of duty. She was reading because she wanted to be there. When she finished, she closed the book softly, adjusted Margaret's blanket, and stood quietly. As she stepped out of the room, she ran into Thomas. "I'm sorry, Mr. Thomas. I didn't know you were—" "Did you pick that book?" "Yes. I thought she might like it." He said nothing for a moment, then nodded, serious. "Thank you." She smiled, a simple smile. Nothing like the ones he'd known from Olivia. The next morning, Margaret, more lucid, took her son's hand. "She's good. Don't pretend you haven't noticed." Thomas squeezed his mother's hand gently. "I've noticed." But trusting was still hard. Feeling anything without fear was hard. The scars Olivia had left hadn't fully healed. That night, Thomas was reviewing footage from the mansion's exterior cameras, a habit that had become routine. But in the early hours, something caught his attention. In the footage from the side woods camera, there was a figure. Someone standing still, watching the house, motionless, like a statue in the shadows. Behind them, a black car, license plate covered with dark tape. Thomas paused the video, zoomed in as far as possible. The figure turned for a brief second. Hardly anything could be seen. But in the tilt of the head, in the way the person watched, there was something familiar. Olivia. And if it wasn't her, it was someone with the same look, the look of someone who wasn't done yet. Thomas closed the monitor and took a deep breath. In the living room, Margaret slept peacefully. Karen prepared tea in the kitchen. The house was at peace, for now. But the shadow outside made one thing clear. The nightmare might be over, but the war was far from finished. And you? What did you think of this story? If it moved you, take a deep breath with me and tell me, which part gave you chills? And where are you watching from? Your like and subscription help this message reach more people who need to feel this impact too.